will come to order. Good morning, everyone. And Sean, will you call roll?
Absolutely. Ms. Gustafson.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Dr. Coppernoll.
Here.
Mr. Johnson.
Here.
Dr. Steck.
Here.
Dr. Trively.
Here.
And Ms. Pack.
Here.
Thank you.
All right. First item on our agenda is the approval of the agenda. Is the pledge. After roll call. I don't know about you, I haven't had my first sip of coffee yet. Would you please join us in the flag salute? Charlie, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For as long as you can afford it.
Now it's time for the approval of the agenda. Board members, are there any changes? All right. We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda today. Any questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Now, this gives me a great deal of pleasure. We have a new student trustee, and I'm going to take this opportunity to do the oath of office. Yes.
It'd be nice for you guys to step out in front.
I thought we would do that. Would you, Dr. Trively, would you like to introduce Golnesh first?
Yes, Golnesh Pak is our student trustee, elected to this position. We're very excited to have Golnesh join us, and look forward to all her wonderful representation of students.
And as I explained to Golnesh, this is an oath of office that all of the trustees take. And this is the first time I've had the opportunity to assist in this. All right, so will you repeat after me? Yes. I, Golnesh Pak, do solemnly swear or affirm that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California against all enemies, foreign and domestic, that I will bear true faith and allegiance to the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of California, that I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation or purpose of evasion, and that I will well and faithfully discharge the duties upon which I am about to enter. Congratulations. Okay. Recognition. Is Steve Lambert here
I don't see
yet?
Stephen Lambert here.
Okay.
He said he will be late.
He will be late, all right. Trustees, with your permission, when Steve Lambert comes in, we have a recognition for him, and in respect for his time, I would hope that we could interject that whenever he comes in. All right, all right. Acknowledgement of guests. Are there, we have lots of guests today. How nice. All right. All right. And public comments. This is the time for people to comment on items not on the agenda. We ask you to state your name for the record, and we ask that you hold your comments to 3 minutes. And we have a timer. Each person will be invited to speak once and to not pass their time on to someone else. We invite each of you to speak once, but just one person will speak one time. And board members, do you wish to set a limit of time for public comments? Or do you wish to keep it open?
I think we should perhaps, again, hold it to 3 minutes.
No, I meant a total time. So do you want to take public comments for 30 minutes, for 20 minutes, for 60 minutes, or do you want to leave it open?
And I really do feel that if people showed up, we should hear them.
You want to take all of the comments? I asked that question because we have a lot of this governing board has a lot of important business that needs to be conducted, and we have to make everything fit into a day's time. So that is why I asked my trustees if they chose to do that. All right.
Hi, Alan Hoffa. Thank you. I've got basically 2 comments. First of all, I am glad that the district has decided to come back to the negotiating table, and I think that's a real positive step. I'm not going to comment on anything now that we're back in negotiations. I think it's best for our negotiating team and your negotiating team to to work things out there. But I would like to ask how many folks here, if you are here supporting faculty, if you would stand, please.
We're all supporting faculty.
Thank you. Good. That's wonderful. The other thing I do want to address that is not on the agenda has to do with the role of the board in communicating with and being a liaison with the community. And so this meeting time, I just need to let you know, this is not the best meeting time if you want your community. This is a great turnout of people who are here to participate in the meeting, but if you really want people to be here, then having meetings in the morning is not a good idea. And in fact, even the time at 1:30, if you want people who work, they can't take off work to come to a board meeting. So I think that's something that I really encourage you to think about. And I do thank you not putting a limit on the time. I'm going to tell you something, Clyde Roberson, Mayor Clyde with the city of Monterey, he likes to say that, when we come together, the business we are doing is the people's business. And so the important business you're doing is all of our business. And it's really important to make sure that you do everything possible to make it as easy for the public to participate and to fully participate. So I would encourage you to think about the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr.
Hi, my name is Natalie Gray, and I'm a teacher for Monterey Peninsula Unified School District. And I'm here in support of the faculty because many of my students end up going to MPC and they love it. And they don't love it for the board, that's nothing personal, and they don't love it for the administrators, and they love it for the faculty. They love it for their teachers. They know many of them. They tell me about them. They're excited. They're getting a good education. It's not you all who make up the school. It's the faculty, and they deserve to be paid a good wage. Considering that they're some of the lowest paid faculty in California, with one of the most highly regarded junior colleges in California, you are really lucky, and they deserve to be paid. And I hope that you will go to the negotiating table in good faith, because the children that I teach depend on these teachers. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Kelly Stack, and I teach American Sign Language at MPC. Last May, the World Languages Department participated in the Language Capital of the World Cultural Festival. And we were happy to see Rick Johnson come by our booth. I wish all of you had been able to attend. Students from the American Sign Language program performed ASL poetry on the main stage, and the audience reaction was enormous. I have a video of their performance that I'd love to share with you. Today, you're considering new policies that would limit the ability of your constituents to give you feedback. I'd like you to think about how the boards of other local community colleges interact with their constituents. At Cabrillo, Hartnell, and Gavilan, board meetings are held in the evenings when students, faculty, staff, and voters can attend. Here at MPC, board meetings are held during the day when regular working people have to make special arrangements in order to attend. At Cabrillo, Hartnell, and Gavilan, contact information for individual board members is available on their websites. Here at MPC, there's just one point of contact for the entire board. It's a generic email address. Who knows where it goes? Certainly not directly to the members of the board. Why are these other college boards so much more open to their constituents? Maybe it's because they believe that a free exchange of ideas guarantees that they will be able to fulfill their obligation to run their colleges wisely. Maybe it's because they want the people who live in the community to be able to participate in the governance of their community colleges. Maybe it's because they know that in this great democracy, voters expect elected officials to be accountable. Maybe the MPC board has something to learn from these other colleges. Thank you.
I'll be brief. My name is Eric Ogata. I'm a resident of Carmel Valley, and I'm also a faculty member here. As many of you know, particularly members of the board, I look out here and I see this room, and I've been coming to these meetings fairly regularly. It is one of my priorities for the past 10 years or so. I wish for participation like this and was sometimes troubled with myself being the only voluntary community faculty member here. Not that, our academic senate president and college council or PAG chair and those folks would be here also at times. And I believe it's the administrative procedure that you guys are looking at, item Y. Is it item Y? Public participation in governing board meetings 2350. I would ask the board to have a robust discussion about that publicly. I know we've worked well together. Not only faculty, but the public. And if this isn't clear, I understand some of your concerns, I think, but I don't know, right? So I think the discussion would be healthy as we move forward and hopefully not further fracture this college. I remember a comment I said that we were fractured. Another board member mentioned that, well, maybe we could be repaired because we weren't broken. I pray that that is still not the case. Thank you.
Hello, didn't bring my tennis racket this week. Here's my comments, and here's a present. I'll take one and send them around. Copy of the comments if you wish, and some of the presents. I'm Georgia Van Dam, frequent contributor. College is like a three-legged stool. I gave this speech 2 years ago, but didn't have a little stool to give you then. Sitting at a pizza parlor, I saw these little stools and I thought, I gotta get these for the board. Please accept this as a reminder that shared governance is the way that we keep in touch with each other. The three legs, administration and the board, faculty and staff, they're all essential to keep this stool level so that the students don't slide off the top. We have to keep talking to each other and responding to each other. If we keep this stool balanced, keep the communication going, we're helping to build a better platform for our school. Thanks.
Thank you, George.
My name is Beverly Bean. I'm an activist in the community and a student at Monterey Peninsula College, off and on, over 30 years. I have loved this place, and largely that is because of the teachers that I have had over those years. I am deeply troubled by the missions, that you don't understand the mission of a community college. And I am very troubled that ever since this current administration came in 2013, the faculty has been out of contract. This is a tool. This is a tool that you seem to be using to favor administration at the expense of faculty. I have written you these comments. I have published these comments. It doesn't seem to make any difference. What I hear today about being fractured makes me very sad. I only hope that if you cannot see what you are doing to the faculty, that you are replaced in the next election.
Ladies and gentlemen of the MPC Governing Board, I, Albert Traumetta, the Director of Student Representation for ASMPC, am here today to make a simple request that is not hard to wrap your head around. This request is that you make a fair and reasonable contract deal with the Teachers Association that accommodates for the rising standards of living here on Monterey Peninsula. The fact is that we are in an area of the United States that is extremely desirable to live in. Therefore, the prices of housing and the cost of everyday life keeps going up. I do not expect the cost of living to go down anytime soon. As costs go up, you, Governing Board, Administration, will have to move in a different direction than they currently are moving accordingly to the increases. It only makes sense to go in this direction. And a new contract that accommodates for all these factors is the first step of many to adjusting for the future. You have in your hands the ability to go in a promising direction compared to the past and finally bring this epic of negotiation to a fair for the teacher's end, but of course this means going a different direction. So that means actually providing for the teachers of MPC to ensure that their futures here on this beautiful peninsula are maintained and that any future applicants can come to MPC with the confidence of having a substantial safety net underneath them. This is not a simple request, and I believe you should provide for this in good faith. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Cassandra Pomeno, and I'm a registered MPC student. I'm actually missing my microeconomics class just to be here, so this is not a good time. It would be better in the evening, 7 o'clock, 6, then more teachers could be here too. But I live in Salinas, and I could be going to Hartnell, but I prefer the faculty here. I mean, you have a lot of good benefits to this campus. Your campus is beautiful, but I keep coming back because the faculty pays so much attention to me. And I believe whatever it takes to make them happy, eventually is going to make the students happy because then they can focus on our success. And thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate you as our students. Are there any other public comments?
Good morning, my name is Helen Davis. I'm a lifelong learner here at MPC, and I would just like to know what you're doing to solve the problem of lack of funding for lifelong learners. We are a substantial portion of the community. We are the people who can keep you going. We are the people who will fill your parking lots, your classrooms, and support your faculty. We can solve this problem if we work together as a community. We cannot solve it if you ignore it. Thank you.
Good morning, my name is Dominic Dursa. I'm an alumni of this place. I don't even want to be here this morning. I'm kind of getting tired of this whole tour of One day it's the Pajaro Valley Teachers Association, another day it's the Salinas Union Teachers Association who has an issue. This issue isn't just you guys, though the attitude does seem to be contagious throughout boards and administration. At what point can we just let the teachers do their job? They teach, and they don't have a lot of time to do it, and surprisingly, they have to do it uncompensated very often because y'all don't pay them enough. Somehow, we keep expecting teachers to be saintly in the fact that they'll continue to do this job even when it costs them personally. And yet we have no problem paying administrators more than enough because somehow we believe an administrator must be justly compensated, and yet the person in the classroom, well, they're a nice person. They'll keep doing it because they love it. Why do we have that split? And these people deserve more, but the administrators or the teachers will get to it when we can get to it. To the student rep, I don't know you, but I would say this: make this more than a line in the resume. And I only say that because I've known other students who've gotten involved in things like this, and they just do it for a line in the resume. You represent students. These people don't teach your classes. They do. So make sure that these people are getting helped out and not them. And for you guys, we'll see you in 2018. You have a good morning.
I didn't hear. You'll see us what?
2018.
Okay, thank you. I didn't hear it. I was like,
No worries. You'll hear me then.
My name is Danielle Martin, and I've been everything here at MPC. I've been a student. I've been on staff with the MPC Foundation. And then, happily, my daughter chose to go here, my second daughter, and then transferred to UC Davis. So I'm introducing myself as a community witness that really loves this campus and all that it has offered to not only me, but many people in my life here. And I'm just here because I want to think that everyone should be paid fairly that's trying to live here on the peninsula. And for the faculty's pay rates stagnating for so many years, I listen and I read newspaper articles. I'm just wondering, has the administration's pay rates stagnated equally? And then I think of all of us as a team. All of us have duties to fulfill. I hear lots of comments. I have student interns work for me. I don't hear complaints about their experience at MPC, but I'm wondering about the administration's leadership. Have any meaningful strategies been developed for increasing enrollment? I feel there's all sorts of niches. Why do so many local high school kids bypass our beautiful campus? Where's the outreach? Where's the introduction to getting more young people here on campus and finding out that it's relevant? I'm wondering about programs, new career tracks, vocational realities that are meaningful not only here on the peninsula, but beyond. And in my day, we had lots of international students. We have all these campuses. Where is some kind of interdisciplinary world that MPC could be taking advantage of? I work in Monterey. I live in Carmel Valley. I have friends throughout here, and I feel like there are populations of people that are not using this campus the way it should be used. And then again, looking at other community colleges here in California, how come they've survived through these similar economic challenges and been able to support not only their administrative departments, but their faculty? How come Hartnell's faculty gets 10% more than this local group? Anyway, not on our backs. I totally feel like MPC's faculty is paying more.
Danielle, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to make a public comment?
Yeah.
Hi, Wes Weiss, Salinas resident. Also been a teacher, substitute teacher, tried to get on for being an adjunct teacher with Hartnell at one point. I'm kind of disappointed, I guess, with the whole way that teachers are treated in general. You know, this 4 years, no negotiation. The same thing happened at the Salinas City Elementary School District, and that was a bargaining chip. It was negotiation to just keep on poking and prodding. There's a lot of intimidation, retaliation that happens in administrations across the board, and it just seems disappointing and disheartening as someone who's really trying to work to improve situations and just be pummeled and buried by, you know, the powers that be, and it's disheartening because if we can't do our job well, then how can we expect our students to turn out well? And we're giving them ourselves, our heart, our spirit, our money, you know, our life, and that's actually what we're doing. We're investing our lives into our future's lives, and that's what's supposed to be not just trickling down, but just flowing, jet streaming down. You know, because that's our ultimate objective. Is these kids, our money seems to be top heavy. Administrative-wise, this has been since like the 50s anyway. And it's choking out the kids, it's choking out our progress, it's choking out our maturity, because we have all this infighting that happens. Who's going to get the money? Who's going to get the money? Well, everybody at the top says, well, I'm going to make sure I get the lion's share, and everybody else can fight over the crumbs. And it's not the way we should be doing business, it's not the way we should be treating people, and it's not the outcome of the goals that we should be role modeling for our kids either, because this is the perpetuation of who's more important. Well, I'm more important than everybody else, but that's not our objective in this institution. That's, you know, we should be practicing what we preach a lot more and taking care of our people before we take care of ourselves.
Any more public comments? All right, we will move along to consent calendar. And board members, there have been a couple of changes to the consent calendar. There is a correction in the minutes of the May 31 board meeting. New business agenda item L, a substitution has been made in your packet to renumber. Do you have any questions about that with regard to the minutes? And then consent agenda item DC, the salary range for the employee should be 20. And item number 3 under new business, item Y, it's my item 3. Background section AP 2735 should be AP 3100. So with those, all right, with the changes already articulated, we have a motion to approve the consent agenda and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes unanimously. New business. All right. We are waiting for Stephen Lambert, our prior student trustee, and we will do that item A when he joins us. Okay. Information, accreditation recommendations. Dr. Tribally, this is such an informative report that we get every month.
Every month, for sure.
Every month.
Yeah.
How important accreditation is to all of us.
And it very much is, Ms. Dungus and members of the board. Today, because we have our tentative budget on the table, we're expecting lots of interactions there. You have my written, the college's actually written summary of our progress, the new progress is in blue, right? New is in blue. And I'm going to leave it open to you to ask me questions as you have them. I would like to highlight, as you know, our accrediting commission, the ACCJC, issued the college 22 recommendations. We've made significant progress towards completing those recommendations. I'd like to point out, since our last meeting, we are now, we're tracking towards, with your policy revision that you have on the table today, 70% completion by when the policies you have in your packet today, when those get to completion, we are at 70% completion of our policy review. This is after decades of not revising those. I would certainly want to call out all of those on campus that have worked on these, certainly Vicki Nakamura and our board subcommittee. So that's something of note. The other very important note for you today is that our Planning, Research, and Institutional Effectiveness Committee is up and running. You know we have many recommendations that relate to not only assessments, but integrated planning, disaggregation of data, linking our planning to our resource allocation. And the college has hired an interim dean of planning, research, and institutional effectiveness. You're aware of that. And that committee has made tremendous progress. And you see some of the progress they've made in your packet in terms of moving the institution forward. So we're very pleased about that. And finally, the other sticky wicket is, as we know, the Accrediting Commission, among other external reviewers, has noted that our financial situation is one of concern, and primarily to match our ongoing expenses with our ongoing revenue. And I want to shout out to the campus community, in particular Dr. Crow, for his work in strategizing to bring in a higher level of revenue this year using our summer borrowing strategy, and then significantly conservative budgeting that removed even more from the cost structure of the college. And we're presenting to you later today a balanced budget for this year that is significant. So those two items are very important for the ACCJC to see when they come and visit us next spring. So do you have any questions on the written report?
Umesh, please.
On number 5, I understand that it says that most of the progress will be done by end of June. I was just wondering if the evaluations have been fully completed.
You know, that's a very good question. That's for our human resources lead to address. I don't know where we are in terms of the progress towards the evaluations. This is about our employee evaluations. Susan?
So we're tracking those. We're getting our administrative evaluations in this month, the majority of those. We have a few remaining classified evaluations.
Importantly, all of the evaluations that we're doing include a section in which we determine if the employee has engaged appropriately or not in the process of assessment of student learning outcomes or service area outcomes when it applies. So that's another recommendation we have had. Any other questions?
Yes.
I believe you have mentioned this before, and I apologize for not remembering, but number 15, the progress part is blank. I just wanted to double check when that will be addressed, and if there's...
Give me why I turn to number 15 is probably part of it.
So that's a human resources
Yeah, to meet
policy.
standards. Yeah, this is has to do with policies and procedures and HR. Okay, Susan, you can please go ahead and address this. Yeah, I didn't mean to.
Just due to workload issues and shortage of staff, that's going to be this summer's project. And yeah, they should be ready for the fall to take through the participatory governance process and have them reviewed and approved by the board.
We've been engaged in lots of recruitments in the Human Resources Office, many new faculty and some other positions. So it's been really, the same people have to do all the policy revisions. Other questions or concerns or comments?
Other trustees? Any other questions?
Sure. I know this is all work in progress. We've got a few that are completed. Are you satisfied that we are on track to complete this by our deadline?
Are you, if you wouldn't mind, Dr.
I'm sorry. I said this is all a work in progress, I know, but are you still comfortable that, I think I said satisfied before, but are you so comfortable that we're going to actually accomplish all these things by our deadline? That's our question.
Good question. I was obviously, the budget was a big one, and given the hard work of the campus and some good strategy, we're presenting at least this year a balanced budget, and we have some concerns on the horizon, and we can't sustain the level of cuts that we've made forever. But so that's good. So I'm very happy about that. We do need to make greater progress in the area of student learning outcomes assessment. We're in the mid-60s, but we are taking steps to identify the courses. In fact, that information has been shared with the division chairs, the deans at our last advisory group with our academic affairs folks, and there will be a follow-up this summer in cabinet. We need to know which courses are still being offered that haven't been assessed and get those assessed. That one I am concerned about, because that is the baseline of all of your planning. Again, I know the board is well aware of this, but we can't do integrated planning unless you know, that's all based on how well our students are doing and how well they're being served. So that's a concern. We slowed down there. The majority of that progress was, not all of the progress, significant progress was made in the area of actually doing the assessments, but the majority of the percent change there was due to us due to the faculty removing courses we were no longer teaching from our catalogs. I am concerned about that one. The integrated planning is going to be tremendously challenging, Dr. Steck, and we are modifying our planning calendar so that we can have some evidence for the evaluation team to look at, right? So we're changing the tempo and timing of our planning in this coming fall. But that one's a big concern for sure, the integrated planning piece. That's a tough one to do in a few months, yes. Yeah.
Thank you. I see a question from...
Can I ask a couple ones for clarity?
Yes.
One is, I believe that under recommendation 2, there was no June meeting of the pre-committee. Just so you know, I don't believe it's been met in June. I missed that meeting, I'm really embarrassed. Okay. Under recommendation number 3, there was no vote taken in Senate to help facilitate assessment. Not that Senate doesn't want to help facilitate assessment, and I plan to talk about that in my report, but there was no vote taken in that regard. We felt that learning assessments are very well placed in the hands of the Learning Assessment Committee, and that they're doing a really great job. And we have offered their full support, and you know that we brought you a board policy in this regard, but there was no vote taken saying that we will support, we of course support this.
So is there a
recommendation number 3, it
change?
says that there was a vote taken on March 16th, there was no vote taken on March 16th.
Okay, we will certainly make that change.
We of course offer our support, but it's kind of a given.
As a member of the Cabinet Plus, please make sure that that one is your voice, that's the new changes.
Yeah, I didn't see that one.
And regarding the meeting in June, I'm not sure we stated that. Was there a meeting 6/19? Was there a pre-committee on 6/19? I'm seeing some heads nodded. So there was a meeting. Yeah.
And then lastly, on recommendation number 12, I just wanted to clarify that this reads that the college updates to administrative hiring procedures. I just wanted to clarify that this means the procedures for hiring of administrators, procedures that are not currently posted online. Is that right? I've heard mention of this, number 12, recommendation number 12.
I believe it is correct.
Okay.
It's
I've heard mention of this recommendation referring to adjunct faculty hiring procedures, and I just wanted to clarify that that doesn't refer to those, because those are already posted along with full-time faculty hiring procedures and classified hiring procedures. And I'm not sure why adjunct hiring procedures are getting mixed up in the mix with administrative hiring procedures. I know that you are discussing hiring specialists today.
Well, I know we're looking at adjunct hiring procedures, not necessarily as a
It's
standard,
too
not necessarily to be the recommendation, but we are looking at that, and that's been discussed, I know, in my advisory group for sure. And I believe in that as well, that we are part-time hiring procedures are flexible enough and I think, yeah, I know you were present for that. We were talking about looking at making those procedures more flexible so we can make adjunct hiring easier and more efficient for the college.
Okay. I would ask that those discussions about adjunct hiring procedures come through Senate, if at all possible, because they are academic and professional matters. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Trively. We really appreciate the work of the pre-committee and appreciate the fact that during the summer when people are fragmented, it is difficult to keep the work moving forward, even though it needs to keep moving forward. So trying to keep everybody on the same path is sometimes challenging. Steve Lambert is here. We're going to now go to item A of new business. I want to go out in front. I still have the glasses. I'll come with you. Steve Lambert has been our student trustee for 2 years, and we've enjoyed his participation, and we appreciate his participation. Whereas Stephen Lambert served faithfully and with distinction for 2 academic years on the governing board as student trustee from June 24, 2015 through May 31, 2017. And whereas Stephen Lambert effectively represented the governing board's positions to the students, as well as provided student feedback on issues before the board, enhancing communication and encouraging solutions. Whereas Stephen Lambert was appointed in October 2015 by the MPC Board of Trustees to serve as a student representative on the Citizens Bond Oversight Committee, and he continues to contribute to the effective oversight of expenditure of bond proceeds during his term on the committee. And whereas Stephen Lambert served as an ambassador of Monterey Peninsula College in the community, representing the community at community events, including appearing as the MPC logo mascot at local parades. And whereas Stephen Lambert will continue to be a leader and voice for students during the 2017-18 year as the president of the Associated Students of Monterey Peninsula College. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Monterey Peninsula Community College District Governing Board does hereby express its sincere appreciation and gratitude to Stephen Lambert for his responsible leadership and dedicated service to the district as student trustee. May I hear a motion to approve? All right, we have a motion and a second to approve this resolution for Stephen Lambert. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item C, monthly financial reports. Dr. Trively, do you care to comment on the monthly financial reports, or shall we wait till we get to the budget? Any other questions regarding the monthly financial report?
Sure, I have a question or two. Just, they have to do with the big numbers that are in the percent actual to budget, the ones that are way over 100%. Parking in particular, we have large expenses for parking this year, well over budget. I was wondering what that was, and also, let's see the ones.
I'd be happy to clarify.
Sure.
Yeah, please. So there is a significant reserve in the parking fund, and there were major repairs needed to our parking machines. There was other safety equipment. We've outfitted carts. We've outfitted with uniforms. There's been also a drawdown on an excess of the budget, which needs to be addressed through increased revenue. We've done that by coming to you and asking for increase in parking daily fees and the semester fees that has been reviewed by the student body. We're hoping that that will help close that gap. That is a self-contained fund. It is at a deficit situation, but being corrected over time with a drawdown on that balance as well as the increase in the revenue. There was also an additional security officer hired to service the Marina campus, and that's an additional FTE for that group. And the salary was raised for recruitment for our new security director, as well as the payment of a consultant to fill in the gap for the outgoing security director. So that's the bulk of a summary of the over expenditures that are being addressed with our new director who's on board now.
All right. Okay.
I just want, I noticed that we have a large expense for the OPB, other post-employment benefits, and a lesser amount in revenue for it. So I just wonder how we're tracking on that.
I can speak in general and then make sure that I've answered your question. There are several issues around the OPEB account. You approved the additional $112,000 and change that fills the ARC, the annual required contribution, which fulfills the accreditation amount. So that's listed in the summary of funds, as well as there was a, well, this isn't related, I'll get to that, it's a self-insurance fund thing I was going to talk about, but the revenue comes from multiple places. It's there's a line item that's budgeted out of the general fund, as well as an assessment to all categorical funds per employee, and that revenue comes in, and then we fulfill the obligation as it's paid out for that retirement. So we're on track. That's budgeting well, but hopefully that explains some of what you see there.
May I have a motion to approve the monthly financial?
I have one more question, because it has to do with self-insurance. You can tell us about that.
So the self-insurance fund, you'll see that there's in the narrative a completion of a transfer, because part of your revenue for the current year was drawing down on funds, which was also a concern of the ACCJC. And as Dr. Tribally will inform you later, for the tentative budget, we have done no one-time transfers at all, but this was needed both to balance the budget for the current state of the expenditures, but also for the large amount of one-time expenses that were coming out of the budget, including salary increases to all for within the current year.
And we talked about this last time, but the projected ending fund balance is 1.7 something million, and that's close to what our actuarial study says.
Yes, we did a recent actuarial that talked about 1.7 or 1.8. We're attempting to keep it closer to 2 million if possible to have a little buffer on that. But yes, it's very close to what our actuarial had last stated.
Okay, thank you.
May we have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the 2016-2017 monthly financial report for the period ending May 31. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item D, we'll put the motion on the table and then we'll have the presentation. Be it resolved that the fiscal year 2017-2018 tentative budget be approved, and the public hearing for the adoption of the final budget to be scheduled for August 23, 2017 at 1:30 p.m. at the Sam Karras Room of the Library Technology Center at Monterey Peninsula College, 980 Fremont Street, Monterey, California. All right, we have a motion and we have a second, and we have a presentation.
Members of the board, you may wish to
Yes.
put yourself in a position where you can see.
Thank you.
Carpenter, are you okay seeing there, or?
Dr. Carpenter, if you want to move that.
You okay? All right. Members of the board, you have in your packet a tentative budget, it's multi-pages. This presentation is intended to summarize some of the salient and important 60,000-foot points in the budget. So our budget is based on the May revise, and our apportionment is approximately $40 million. You know, when we say apportionments, that's the money that we receive from our full-time equivalent students. Right? The college obviously receives money from other sources, some grant funds, et cetera. So that's we're looking here at this portion of your overall operating budget. Assumes a cost of living allowance at 1.58%, base increase of approximately $800,000, and we have increases to both retirement systems, the retirement systems that covers most of our, certainly all of our classified employees, the PERS system, and then STIRS covers the majority of our administrators. Some administrators are under PERS, like our Chief Business Officer, and certainly our classified managers are still in the PERS system. But there have been increases across the state to those retirement systems that are mandated, and we do have an increase this year, and the increases rise into the near future. But this budget assumes those increases are in there. In terms of the way we went about aligning our resource allocation, it assumes status quo or reduced budgets. We did a lot of cutting where we could, actually. We have some fixed cost increases to some of our things like, for example, services to the college, in some cases utilities, not always, and salary raises. We have a 2% salary raise for all employees starting in July, as you know, and many of our employees, not all of the employees, but many employees advance on STEP. They, not every year, but many employees do advance with STEP in terms of longevity, and then with professional development in columns. We call these STEP and column advancements. So this budget does include and assume those changes as we've anticipated them. And it assumes that we have to put more aside to cover the cost of insuring our employees. So we've added a 5% increase per benefit eligible employee. So that's additional cost to the district this year, part of our overall compensation. And it also, as I shared earlier, this tentative budget is balanced. So way to go. Apportionment is obviously the largest source of our funds. Here we were assuming a 6,700 full-time equivalent student base, that we're basing our budget on. As you know, within the 6,700 full-time equivalent students, there's three varieties, right? We have credit earning students, we have non-credit, those non-credit courses leading towards a career or a pathway. We call that enhanced non-credit. Those are funded at the same level as credit enrollments. And then we have non-credit. Those are very often thought of, not exclusively, as activity classes. And it is most of the lifelong learning that's in that type of credit enrollment, but certainly not all. And those are funded at about half of the rate of a credit enrollment. There's no large one-time transfers in this budget at all. It does use the strategy of summer borrowing that we have talked about in here many times make sure we have that concept on the table. Recall that we are borrowing what we can from the summer of 2016 into last year's total FTS. We're borrowing what we can from summer 2017 into that year as we report that to the Chancellor's office, and that sets our funding. Next year we won't do that strategy, right? We're borrowing this year from maximally to set the bar for our funding. Next year we will then likely be in stability, where we will be funded at the rate that we're telling the Chancellor's office we just earned. So we're using that strategy. Dr. Crow has implemented that strategy well, and of course the cost of living allowance, as I mentioned before. Tentative budget is, as I said, balanced, but I do, and you'll see later in the presentation very shortly, that it's balanced, but we have a lot of things that we're not paying for. And I mentioned in my responses regarding accreditation, This level of austere, conservative budgeting for a college is clearly not something we can do forever, but we did do it certainly to meet our accreditation recommendation. This pie chart shows where the costs of a college come from. And the majority of any college, and we're no different, come from our people. We're a people serving people business. It is generally assumed that approximately 80% of a college, 80+% of a college's general fund goes to paying for employees and their benefits and their salaries. Okay, and this chart reinforces that concept. It just gives you a quick visual as to the majority of where the money goes. When you see the light blue, the very light blue bar, that's within operating expenses, and in some in certain parts of our supplies. That's where we primarily made our cuts to this budget, where we could. So this budget assumes a 10% general reserve. For folks, this one can be a challenging thing. Remember that the 10% reserve is an annual thing that we do. If the board has to have 5%. We have a board policy for 10%, which is prudent, particularly for small colleges. And it's an annual event. The day the board decides to have less than this, that helps that 1 year. Say you went to 7.5, that would help that 1 year, but it wouldn't help the following years going out. Pending MPC budget issues. Okay, maintaining FTES. Remember, this is a summer borrowing strategy. It's very appropriate. It's actually quite common within the state, but we have to keep working towards maintaining and increasing that. So 6,700 plus. And you are quite aware of many of the strategies that we have already successfully employed to try to address that. So this is a financial conversation. It's not the conversation about all these great initiatives and what they're doing to improve our communities and the great opportunities that college is providing for high school students to get college in the high school, or our new partnerships with CSUMB in terms of having duly admitted students. But in terms of finances, those types of agreements and arrangements should serve the college well now and into the future as a source of new full-time equivalent students, so to help us with our finances. If restoration is not sustaining, we could lose over $1 million. So what this bullet point refers to is that we still have a ways to go to secure all the funding that is available to us, that is on the table in the background. Right now we're at a 6,700 FTS budget. There's more available to us if we can earn it. MPC is not eligible for growth funding at this point. We would be able to get growth funding, but you have to get to the level of FTS that the state allows you to restore before it then allows you to grow. And when it allows you to grow, it has a limit to how much you can grow. The state regulates that. And as I said in the last board meeting, our percent with the new funding formula, our percent growth, should we get there, is really quite low. It's between 1% and 2%. And if you start thinking about how long it would take the college at a growth rate of let's say 1.5% each year, that's many, many years of growth to try to gain back the more than $5 million that we've lost to the changes at the state level that limit funding for repeated enrollments, primarily in lifelong learning. So our growth is capped. I used the figure of 1.5% as something hopeful in the future, but our growth is typically right around 1%. State funding formula changes. We have greater restrictions to that than we ever had before. STIRS and PERS is going up. We've presented that to you in multiple meetings, what the trajectory of that is in terms of percent increases. MPC, this is a very important list of bullet points to focus on. Many of the colleges that we refer to are sister colleges or neighboring colleges, Gavilan, Hartnell, Cabrillo, all of them have an enterprise resource planning system. Typically that system is a banner system or a data-tel system. It's a software system that allows the college to run efficiently. Without such a system, you have to employ many, many people to do the labor one piece of paper at a time. It's very labor intensive. When you move to a system like that, you still need the personnel, but they're working within the system and they're working to manage the system. That system, the cost of such a system would depend on the vendor we would go with, but it is not unreasonable, depending on the level of service we get, that such a system would cost somewhere between $8 and $10 million with approximately a $500,000 annual licensing fee, and there would need to be one or more likely two new IT staff to help manage such a system. So we're operating without that, and it really does hurt us on a daily basis, but it's something we certainly need to look towards in the future. A new capital bond can help with parts of that. It can help with some of that, but it can't pay for all of that. But it's definitely something we need to do. We've identified a need for that in our quality focus essay. We've been focusing on accreditation on the recommendations. Remember, we've promised the ACCJC that we're going to work on some things in our quality focus essay. This is one of those things we're working on. We have made progress in every aspect of attaining an ERP with the exception of getting the funding. So, we do not have a director of Title IX and certainly helping us. We do provide Title IX services and support on our campus, but we don't have a dedicated position to Title IX and EEO functions. Yeah, our human resources lead, Susan Kitagawa, plays these roles on our campus in addition to all of her other duties, but we really should be moving to a dedicated position there. We don't have that. Director of Facilities and Planning is another gap we haven't had for many, many years. When I joined the college, we didn't have one. And I am personally unaware of a college that does not have a Director of Facilities. We certainly need that position. Restoration of staffing in key areas of support. Well, you know, we've been managing the grounds, 3 physical locations with 4 individuals. 4 classified staff members have been managing the grounds, you know, and they do a great job, but it's just, it's a big job. So we have to decide on a rotating basis what part of the campuses we're going to work on. Restoration of staffing across the college is needed. Faculty and staff are needed for expansion and changes of services. You know, we're moving into the high schools, we're changing some of our types of programs that we're offering in the future and services, and we're going to need faculty and staff to adjust. That's just a general statement for any college as it evolves with the need of your community. And those items were estimated in fiscal to cost on an annual basis at over $2 million, but they're not in this budget. Okay, so we don't have those services in the budget. We have our 4 grounds folks, we have our current level of faculty, staff, and administration, and we do not have that ERP, so to speak. So I'm going to turn the reins over to the man with the plan, the guy that knows all the money, Dr. Crow, and he'll take you from here.
These columns represent an actual as audited for 14-15 to give a baseline of what we were able to operate under for that year. You take the next column, 15-16, and you see what the actuals were for that year. However, there were significant one-time revenues that came in, so you'll see the huge jump in revenues of what I estimate to be close to $3.5 million. There was a plan for those one-time revenues. It was used to help balance the budget. That was a large transfer, as well as one-time addressing of organizational restructure, consulting, other one-time purchases for vans and technology, and all of those things was as outlined in previous presentations. Not all of that was spent, which resulted in a carryover for those one-time funds. Those efforts are still ongoing. That represents some of what was available in the ending fund balance for the current year, as well as the ability to then, in the current year, also a transfer from the self-insurance fund that allowed us to be able to pay out the large one-time raises and to sustain the first increment of raises of the 1% and now the 2%. Going forward. As you see the actuals through May, we want to make sure that we put an asterisk beside that so that you know that those figures look low because not everything has been entered, it's not been closed out. There's not a way at this time during tentative to show that, but still trying to represent what's ongoing. Then you see a revised budget for 16-17 that includes a lot of the changes that I mentioned, because you have an initial budget and then you have those things that happen throughout the year that the board approves. And now we see what the budget is to budget for 17-18, and now you can see the difference in the far right column, what has been adjusted. So you'll see that we're still down in revenue overall, so I wanted to stop for just a second and explain that in the presentation you saw that we were getting a COLA and we were getting an addition to the base. So that is an additional revenue. The reason why you see revenue is down from year to year is because we're not doing the one-time borrowing from ourselves, and that was counted as revenue in the prior year. So what we've done now is to realize through ongoing an amount that is very near equal what we need to do at just the base level of operations, still on the looming horizon of those other increases in expenses and whatever our resource and planning identifies as the highest priorities for the final budget. Going into the expense areas and still looking at the far right column, you can see that there were major changes in salaries. This is, again, because the one-times is not being spent out, but there actually includes all of the raises, which is an cumulative 3% from the prior 2 years, for the current and the prior year. There was a SERP, which also helped in estimating those salaries for the vacancies that are currently there. We'd have all the positions that were previously classified in the tentative budget, but they're placed at what the starting level would be. So that accounts for some of those savings. Fringe benefits, however, go up. That's because of STRS and PERS. The one area of fringe benefits that we were able to reduce down was workers' compensation. There was a large adjustment down there due to trend. We were able to make an adjustment down on that. Books, supplies, operating capital outlay, all those areas were scrutinized with VPs, with their deans, with the division chairs, department heads. Budget documents went out and back. There were many meetings to make sure that we were adequately budgeting for what was needed for all the areas, but just at a level that was going to be status quo, because our new resource allocation process being talked about in pre will now occur from now until the final budget. And I sense there are questions. Is there any questions? Okay. Are there any questions? Okay. Here's a summary of all funds. You had columns that compared to the prior years. This is a breakdown of the tentative budget per the major funds. And you can see the ending fund balance is predicted to be a little bit more than 10%. Again, the budget doesn't include everything, and it's a balanced budget for incoming revenue, so the above 10% would be available for those one-time expenses that was a carryover from prior years, should that be identified and recommended and approved. This is a top-level summary of all the categorical funds, the 18 largest.
Steve, do you want questions as we go through, or you want me to wait until the end?
Sure.
Sure, either way. I just have a couple questions on this page.
Okay.
We just did last year, I know this I got a few questions, but let me start with an easy one. The restricted general fund has income of 8.99, outgo of 8.99. That I understand that that's something we don't have to worry about. If we get it, we get it, and it goes away. Last year it was 15 million. What are we not getting in restricted funds and we're not spending in restricted funds that we got last year? Because that's a $6 million difference. As you compare this page to the previous item on the agenda, which was this month's budget, looking at
the question for those that didn't hear was that it's showing a balanced budget for the restricted categories of 8.9 million revenue and 8.9 expenses, and Dr. Steck's remembering that he's recalling a restricted budget of 15 million, and he's asking what the difference of 6 million is representing, and I can only, I'll have to look at and ask Rosemary, please.
We did have several grants that ended this fiscal year, and there are some grants that we will be including in the final budget, which were approved by the federal government, but now are.
I'll repeat for everyone that didn't hear. So this does not include all of the potential grants that we will be getting awarded from the state, and there were some grants that were sunset. So the difference in the final budget could be closer to that of what you've seen in the past years.
Another question I have. We already talked a little bit about self-insurance, but you remember as of June 30th, the projection was we were going to have 1.8, and a day later we're going to have 2.5 million in the beginning fund balance, right? Because we just said at the end of June 30th it's going to be 1.8, so we gained 700,000 there. And I understand that we want probably that much money or something like that much money in there, but I also see at the end, we're projecting right now 2.9 at the end of next year, which is a $400,000 increase in our self-insurance fund.
There's a lot of different points in time, and I can turn to Rosemary again to talk about the accounting of when this goes in, goes out. There are transfers to the workers' comp that are required. There's also revenue that comes in, and at a point in time that there may not be a fully realized of those transactions.
And that's accurate, because we do have a lot of receivables coming in, and we'll be setting up, and there's just a lot of activity still happening until we close out the books.
So for the audience, those who didn't hear, what she's saying is that this ending fund balance reflects all the receivables, and we may not have received all the claims, so that it'll better represent what our budget is once this projection.
I haven't looked at it, so
Yep.
as accurate as I can.
Okay.
Well, just on the 2.9, that's what we're projecting at the end of the year. Is that actually $400,000 more than is that money that is available? Is the question. Is that real money? Is that real money?
Well, we'll have to track it as we go, and we definitely will do that. We're also projecting a very large increase in claims, and we're only slightly adjusting the budget up to accommodate for those claims. And we're also mailing out letters for the retirees, adjusting that percentage, but that won't go into effect until January. So we'll have to see month by month how that fund is affected. We're totally self-insured. We pay out claims. It's highly unpredictable as how that fund will be affected based upon the activity of the claims. So this is the top 18 largest categorical programs. Third from the bottom is the Triple SP. I mean, they're not all of the labels exactly match in some of the programs you've seen before, but there's roughly 1.7 million in the Triple SP that we're receiving. And you can see the others, and you can see the changes from the prior years. Some are up and some are down. And that's all based on some of the metrics as to which we're reimbursed. And I know that Larry Walker is an expert in this area, and he follows those metrics, and then student services make sure that we're doing the max that we can do to maximize those revenues.
I do want to make sure we point out about our self-insurance. I know Dr. Crow mentioned it, but we do pay claims. So we are setting aside approximately $22,700 per benefit eligible employee this year. That's that amount we did last year plus 5%. And so far our claims history supports that type of an adjustment. And of course, if we receive more claims this year, then that will impact our budget going forward. The district does have stopped loss insurance that at least covers us for 1 year in the case of catastrophic claims. Questions you have, members of the board?
Let's go back up here and see if the audience has questions. Appreciate the tremendous amount of work, Dr. Crow, that goes into this, Dr. Trively, and all the administrative staff. Are there questions from the audience regarding the budget? I'm delighted that we have so many in the audience here that are able to study and understand it a bit more. If you have a question, would you please come to the microphone so that we can all hear you?
Can I do it from here?
Oh, yes, you can. I'm sorry. I didn't see who it was.
The COLA this year is over 1%. And I know you're in the middle of negotiations. Does the district plan on keeping the COLA, or are they going to negotiate the COLA? Is that on the table right now, that the district keeps the COLA, or are they going to offer it to the employee groups?
Okay. The question had to do with the COLA, if the COLA would be offered to the employees or if the district was going to keep the COLA, and I think Steve would...
I just wanted to point out that the current year, we've passed out 1 plus a 2% so far. So these are just increases to the revenue.
And it's labeled COLA, but it's a percent on the entire budget, and it's one way of increasing the base. So we have an 800,000 and plus the summer borrowing and the 1.56% or 58%. And that was all the relative increases to the revenue that brought us to the level of what we had to borrow to have in the first place. So it does help us sustain the raises that have already been awarded.
Does that answer your question,
Yes.
Lauren? Okay. Are there any other questions from the audience? This is a good time to look at this tentative budget, realizing it is tentative. Lauren?
The question I have is, I didn't get the chance to see the last and final offer to the teachers group as far as the insurance. Is the district still investigating a possibility of joining a third-party insurance company instead of being self-insured?
Dr. Treiber, did you hear the question?
I think I've heard most of it. The college does have an opportunity always in front of us. We're not aggressively or assertively looking at new carriers or moving away from self-insurance at this time. When we do, it's certainly something we would do with labor. But there's a significant opportunity there because we do wrap up so much of our compensation in healthcare. As I mentioned, we're budgeting $22,700 per benefit eligible employee. Many plans that you look at across the state are offered for less than that, and it could be a considerable way to shift that compensation to salaries, but that's certainly negotiable. It's always been an option for Monterey Peninsula College, and it's always been that we have sustained our own self-insurance. So that is a significant part of our package that we offer here. But there are options, but we're not doing that this year. We don't have any proposals on the table to move to a third-party carrier.
How much increases? I remember it used to be 15,000 per employee. You're saying it's 22,000 now. So that's a significant increase.
Yeah, since I've been here, it's never been 15,000, but it's never been that low. So in terms of the medical, dental, vision, the whole thing has never been that low. And again, it's something that we set aside because we pay claims. It makes budgeting quite a challenge at our college. If we were with a third party, then you just know exactly how much benefit eligible employee will cost you that year in terms of setting up the district's budget. But when you pay claims, you estimate, and we've been pretty close. I mean, the system has been fairly close in terms of estimating claims and what we set aside, but it does represent a significant part of compensation. It doesn't allow choices to be made by employees in terms of how much compensation they want for salary, how much will I set aside for medical as I age, or if I have other issues, I might set aside more for medical or buy up. But when I'm in a different part of my life or I have other concerns, I could have more in salary. Salary, as you know, helps you into your retirement, all right, Mr. Walsh, and it influences your sense of well-being and your trajectory of your life. And you have less on your salary if you're putting more into health. And so there's a lot of options there. But when we run our own self-insurance company, basically we control the cost, and that's also a benefit. So it's one of these things. I'm a fan of choice. I don't think there's any solution to health insurance in the United States of America that looks like one size fits all, nor all are fit within one size. I think choice is really the value to anybody that, we're having a national debate about insurance. Choice is what helps us. We're all in different states. We all have, whether we have a partner or a spouse or not, whether we have a family or not, do we have chronic illness or not? These are choices that we can make in America. And there really is no silver bullet, I think, except to offer choice. But right now, we're continuing to offer a very healthy health insurance plan. It's a PPO plan. It's very good. We feel very proud of the fact that, and have for years, that our health insurance is quite valuable. When employees need it, it covers a lot, typically. It's one of the best plans. It is the best plan I've ever been covered by, for for sure.
Are there any, thank you, Dr.
Yeah,
Tribe.
you're welcome.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I think it's significant enough that we should make a public comment because,
Yes.
like I said, I've been coming to these meetings for quite some time, noting that we have a tentative budget that isn't doing any large transfers from other funds. It's significant. It's balanced. I do note that we are borrowing from 2 summers, and we may not have that option again. But I do note that our governor passed the budget a couple days ago that has another increase to the base that wasn't in the May revise. That there is some more, once again, more one-time funds coming into our system. Granted, hopefully we're just fractured, Charlie. Right?
Ongoing.
Yeah, right. So no, we still need to work at making this college sound. But we have an opportunity to do so. So I just wanted to make sure we pointed that out. I had to pick up. My previous comment, I believe it was AP 2345. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions with regard to the budget? Thank you, Rosemary. Thank you, Dr. Crow. Thank you, Dr. Tribely, and all of you who worked to get this ready, to get this balanced. This makes our thought of greeting the accreditation team in January much more pleasant than it would have been had we not had a balanced budget again. So we'll call for the question. All those in favor of the adopting the tentative budget? All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, we are on to item E. Be it resolved that the governing board approves the salary schedule A, contract faculty, schedules B1 and B2, schedules C1 and C2, and the coaching pay schedule for 2017-2018.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. And would you like to make some comments?
General comment, as you see the salary schedules coming before you, this work represents, the 2% that we're adding to all employees' salary schedules, right? And within the schedule, they have, some of our employees have steps and columns associated with their compensation. So as you see the salary schedules today, the reason they're coming forward today is because there needs to be an adjustment that reflects the 2% that's on the table.
And Dr. Kraglin, we had a question earlier during public comment having to do with one particular group being paid at a rate different or given increases different from other groups, and this is an opportunity to set the record straight.
The way overall increases have worked ever since I've been here, and that includes the president's compensation, and that is unique with my position, is I only move when there is a % increase for all of our employees. Our vice presidents, deans, our classified managers, our supervisors, they move at the same rate. Unlike all other employees, I certainly do not have steps or programmed raises due to duration. The other employees do. All of the other employees have this within the vice presidents have a salary schedule, the deans do, the managers do, the classified staff do, and certainly our faculty do, and our part-time faculty. That's not true for the president. So my compensation moves only with the percents you see. I haven't received steps, or if I go back and get more professional development, there's none of that. So it's something that the board and I agreed to early on in 2014, that particularly under these tough financial situations, that my compensation moves only when not even one part of our faculty or our staff move. And we have a Me Too clause here, so if we make a change on salary schedule A, then that also goes certainly by agreement with our classified staff, but we extend that to all employees. So when the faculty move, all employees move.
There are a couple of questions, please, Charlie.
Am I reading this wrong on that first one that we're doing? So the effective date on one of them was July 1, 2007, should be 2017.
Which one are you on?
The very first one, we're talking about item E.
E.
To the longevity step, 15.
Yeah, if you look at the chart, Dr. Carter. Yeah, right here to 2000 effective right there.
Oh,
Is that a correct date?
I think as that's historical to when longevity step 15 was eliminated from the salary schedule. I think that's it's my impression that's why we carried it forward, why there is no step 15.
All right, and Lauren?
So we have a lot of people here who don't come to our meetings normally. Could you just explain fairly quickly what step and column means? How do you read this? How does one go through this?
Yeah, generally speaking, and it would depend on which salary schedule you're looking at and at which college, but generally speaking, steps relate to longevity, the time that a person, the experience that an employee has. And the columns tend to reflect things like degrees, sometimes certificates, sometimes additional, depending on the employee you're looking at. Depending on which group of employees you're looking at, the columns represent primarily education and professional development. Yeah. So it's longevity on the steps, and then column placement by professional development or degree.
All right. Any other questions, Dr. Steck?
No, just the steps go up every year, or
Yes.
almost every year, except for there's a gap.
Yes. So our newly arrived faculty. We have questions from the audience. Do you want your question addressed?
I didn't have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, you didn't.
All right. Yes,
Comment, right?
please, could you come to the microphone so that everyone can hear you, Lauren? Or, not Lauren.
I just wanted to take the opportunity, since you're about to approve, a new salary schedule for faculty, actually 5 salary schedules for faculty. I just wanted to make clear, because it's been so unclear in some of the dialogue at the college, that this increase is an increase that was the result of a grievance, which was filed as a result of a contract provision that would have allowed for a retroactive payment to June 2015, so it's going into effect in July 2017, but in fact, this salary increase is tied to a grievance, which we had to, take through all of the steps of our grievance procedure, as MPCTA, and, go to mediation, a state mediator came in to resolve the conflict. Eric, Alan, and I spent 21 hours in a room going through that mediation. I'm sure that there were members of the administrative staff that did the same thing, and, that's the reason for this, new salary schedule. This is something that was the result of that process. I also want to make really clear, that because we are fast approaching the very lowest paid position in the state of California, that a 1% increase, which we received last year, and a 2% increase that we're receiving this upcoming year, while a significant improvement over the 0% increases that faculty and staff at this college have experienced for so many years, does little more than keep us apace to be the lowest paid college. Colleges across the state are receiving increases of at least that amount, if not more, and as a result, our trajectory is still a downward trajectory, which is something at some point the college board, the college administration, the college faculty and staff are going to need to make a plan to change. Thank you.
Nice.
And for the record, I think it is important also to note, because we are not proud of our low salary schedules, we have to understand that the workload at other colleges in California is different than it is at MPC. The teaching load is different. There are comparable departments at our close institutions such as Hartnell or Cabrillo, who might be teaching 5 classes versus teaching where a full workload is 5 versus 3. So we need to get all these things equal in order to be able to do this. Could you come to the microphone?
No, I can be loud. Some of us are...
No, I'm sorry. There are people who really need help with the microphone. There's a reason for the microphone.
I have to shout out.
My name is Carol Marquardt, and I'm from the Gen Train Board. And did you get my letter, Marilyn? I sent it on an email. I don't have your right email. Anyway, I wanted to thank
you and the board for supporting GenTrain. We are doing very well. I hate to be positive here.
Go for it.
Yes, we are actually expanding, and we combined our lecture series with OSHR at CSUMB, and we have standing room only for some of our free lectures, and we have 450 continuing education people, and there are 5 of us here trying to understand what's going on. Would you please, though, when you get up here, I don't know who you are, and neither do the rest of us, identify who you are?
As trustee?
No, people.
Only audience members. Yes, I've tried, oh, you mean what their role is on?
Or just their names.
Oh, okay.
And what they do.
All right.
That would help us, thank you.
Thank you for reminding me to ask people to do that. And we appreciate our Gen trainers, and we appreciate your attendance. Yes, sir.
Hi, Anthony Vireo, Sociology. I just want to speak to the suggestion that MPC faculty somehow work less than faculty at any other campus. And I'd invite anyone to come onto campus and do your own sort of empirical study of the workload here. And, you know, typical faculty member that I'm familiar with works well into the evening, long after most people have gone home, grades papers on the weekends, works over the summer on curriculum. And instructors here teach 5 classes. Many instructors teach overload schedules. I know multiple instructors teaching 6 classes, not 3. You know, I could go on and on, but you know, don't take the bait on this kind of nonsense. Instructors here are working as hard as anyone I've ever seen. I taught at the high school level for 10 years, okay? So, you know, do your own empirical study. Come watch how hard people work here before making these kind of outlandish claims. I find it offensive that you would talk about your own employees in that way. Do what's right, pay us fairly. It's an embarrassment in this county to have the lowest paid adjunct instructors in the state. And I think you should go home and say that to yourself on a regular basis. We pay our adjuncts so poorly that they frequently leave or teach at 3 and 4 colleges at the same time to try to live. And I think that's where we need to really take this discussion, is how much are people actually being paid and what is the workload that's actually going on. And let's be reasonable in those kinds of claims. Thank you.
Okay, we are addressing items on the agenda. Is there any other comment with regard to approving the salary schedule? Item E. Call for the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item F, be it resolved that the governing board approves the classified salary schedule for 2017-18. All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the classified salary schedule. And trustees, do you have any question with regard to this? Seeing no comment from the, is there comment from the audience on this item? All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item G, be it resolved that the governing board approves the confidential salary schedule for 2017-2018. We have a motion and a second to approve the confidential salary schedule. Are there any comments?
Perhaps the president can tell us a little bit more about this and the relationship between confidential employees and the other.
Would you please use
Perhaps you can tell us a little bit more about the relationship between confidential employees and the other groups for all the people who don't normally come here.
So we have very few, the word confidential here doesn't, it has both the lay meaning and a specific meaning at MPC. Confidential employees are those employees that are engaged in supporting the work related to negotiations. So our confidential employees support the administrative staff who are engaged in confidential conversations regarding negotiations, and all of the human resource staff that report to Susan Kitagawa. So it's a small number of employees on campus, but they are at our college referred to as confidentials. And since I'm doing, and rightfully so, to try to help people understand the employee categories, which does sometimes get, I'll say misinterpreted. We have an administrative group of employees here on campus. It's actually quite small. We have a group of employees called managers, supervisors, and confidentials, the MSC group. These people like our Director of Admissions and Records and Financial Aid. Ms. Nakamura is a member of that, Rosaline, Rosemary, Pete Olson, and I know I've forgotten people from that I should. But that's that group. Then we have our full-time faculty, part-time faculty, and classified staff.
You ready for the question? All those in favor of approving the confidential salary schedule for 2017-18?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item H, be it resolved that the governing board approves the management supervisory salary schedule for 2017-18.
Seconded.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any questions, discussion?
Walt already answered the who these people are question, but we're stating that all these people are, every employee category in these items is getting the same raise, is that correct? Every employee category is getting the same 2%.
Same 2%, right. And in your board item, it gives the history of that 2%. All of what may not be talking about, but what is public record and certainly was sent out is there's a history of where that 2% came from in each one of your board items.
Any other questions or comments? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Item H, be it resolved that the governing board approves the management supervisory salary schedule for 2017-18.
We just do that.
Aye.
Yeah,
Oh.
sorry.
All right.
Aye.
I beg your pardon. Item I, be it resolved that the governing board approves the administrative salary schedule for 2017-18.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion and a second to approve the administrative salary schedule. Questions or discussion?
This is just continuing.
Continuing on. You ready for the question? All those in...
Oh, I'm sorry, you have to say, be it further resolved, that refers to my side.
I am on...
Item I. I'm sorry.
Okay,
I'm not on the salary schedule.
all right.
Good save, Sean.
And be it further resolved that the governing board approves the equivalent salary increase to the superintendent president's salary. All right, with that
So
as
moved.
part of the motion, and moved and seconded, as that is part of the motion. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Sean, for keeping me on track. Now we are on item J.
I'd like to make this motion.
And this,
Please.
no, now we're on item J. Okay. There we are. Tracks with everyone's salary. Be it resolved that the governing board approves the memorandum of understanding between Monterey Peninsula College and Middlebury Institute of International Studies at Monterey as a non-exclusive partner program to assist conditionally admitted students and referral source for the intensive English as a second language program from fall 2017 through spring 2020.
I enthusiastically move.
All right.
I'd like a second, Rick.
All right, so
We have
did
a
you say
second.
the second?
I did.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve this memorandum of understanding. And I see we have some questions. Do we have
Why don't we get a brief, why don't we get some explanation of the item? If
Yes.
you don't mind, and then we'll go.
All right.
Kim, either, Dr. McGinnis, either you or your designee like to speak to this item.
I'm going to go ahead and ask Larry Walker.
All right. Mr. Walker, good morning.
Good morning. So basically what this does, it
Wait,
continues the relationship.
just give us a minute. Thank you.
It continues the relationship with MIS to allow us to accept those students who complete their English language intensive program without taking the TOEFL. This has been a common practice for us for many years. We've worked with the ESL department here, faculty, to determine the level.
Very good. It's a wonderful partnership. And there is a question. Yes, Dr. Craig.
It is a wonderful partnership.
You came from the sun.
Yes, in the hills.
Yes.
Backpacking trip, long story. I just wanted to confirm that, in fact, the ESL faculty were consulted on this.
Yes, they were.
And again, as we do more and more of these MOUs, I would ask that perhaps this be made at least an information item to the Academic Senate. Engaging in these MOUs pull on our potentially our resources, they pull on our ideology, and I think these need to be discussions that come through the Academic Senate if at all possible, please.
Larry, may I ask you, how many years has this been going on, this relationship with Ms. and this program? I don't believe it's anything new, Dr. Craig.
Yeah, do I have to raise my right hand?
Yeah, approximately.
I know I've been connected for the probably past 7 years, and it's been going on for about 7 years. I think well beyond that, too.
I think it was, because I think it was here when I was
Yeah.
on campus as well.
And it's been a good partnership.
It's a very good
What
partnership.
this does, it codifies a relationship. It's been more informal.
Yes.
It formalizes the relationship.
All right, very fine.
And again, we don't have a problem with bringing that to discussion with the Academic Senate. I think it's a good dialogue, but faculty was definitely involved.
All right, very good.
My only comment is I encourage us at all points to have these kinds of partnerships, and certainly at this is one that is well respected and well appreciated.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to voting on it.
All right, all right. All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item K. This is an information item. MPC submission of the Community Colleges of California Chancellor's Office Annual Distance Education Survey.
If I may.
Absolutely.
Thank you. While Dr. Cannoli is getting our projector warmed up and getting his presentation ready, as you know, Monterey Peninsula College has clearly increased the number of students it serves using online modalities, either in a complete online fashion, hybrid, or even simply managing face-to-face courses. This has been a campus-wide effort. Certainly, our progress in the right direction started when the college hired Dr. Cannoli. We have received commendations in the area of online education, particularly as it relates to support for faculty who are developing online courses and support for students. And this is a routine part of offering online options for students, and Dr. Cannoli has prepared a presentation for you if you'd like to move around so you can see it. Maybe, yes, do you mind dimming the lights? There's a switch back there. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for allowing me an opportunity for a very brief presentation about our distance education survey. The Chancellor's Office has a very interesting process of requesting an annual survey every 2 years, so it's not truly an annual survey when you think about it. You have the actual survey responses in your packet, but I wanted to highlight some of the points just to paint a picture of our distance education program at MPC. This survey is our reporting mechanism for letting the Chancellor's Office know how our distance education program is doing. Enrollment is reported as part of our normal campus enrollment process. This is more of an opportunity to provide an update on how we operate our distance education program. And we are also required and happy to present the update to you on a regular basis as well. One of the things that we point out very quickly in the survey is the growth in the number of courses that we provide online at MPC. From the period of July 1st, 2014 to 2016, our faculty worked very hard to create 17 new courses at MPC that were also approved for online delivery, and then take 58 existing face-to-face courses and have them approved for online delivery as well. So the number of online courses that we have approved on our campus is actually quite high now. And to put this in a little bit more context, I also wanted to show our growth in enrollment, which is not part of the survey, because as I mentioned, we report that separately as part of the campus enrollment. But since 2011-2012 through the 2015-16 year, which is where DataMart leaves off, we've grown quite a bit in FTS for online enrollment.
We're pretty close to about 800 FTEs for this current year that we're finishing right now. That's what we're estimating. So we're feeling pretty good that since 2011, 2012, we've about doubled our enrollment in online courses. Some of the questions that they ask want to paint a picture of how we work with our faculty and how our faculty work to develop online courses, and they want to know about the support that is provided for online course development. And I'm very proud of the online support team we have here at MPC. We have Steve Bremer, who is our online technology support specialist. We have Jay Luke, our faculty coordinator for distance education, and John Skellinger, who provides our administrative support as well. Those folks work together with our faculty to support our online courses, our students, our faculty who are developing the courses. But in general, our team has kind of looked at the survey and identified the things that we believe are most commonly ways that our faculty create online courses, that they do the curriculum development, including taking advantage of training provided by that team, largely Steve Bremer and Jay Luke, also the Flex Day sessions, which is a form of that training, and very much so faculty's own initiative, working alone on their course design, which is something that is common across the state and one of the top indicators of the surveys that are provided, as we see in the reports. We also take advantage of training provided by the At One program, which is a statewide community college online support network, as well as the Online Education Initiative, online support, tutorials, collaboration among faculty, and faculty working with our instructional designers, Steve and Jay, sitting down together and designing course materials and working within the course management system. And speaking of that course management system, this was a big change year for us here at MPC for online courses. MPC has used a system called Moodle, we called it MPC Online, for the past 10 years, so a long time in technology age. We phased that system out as our campus did an evaluation and elected to move to the new Common Course Management System, Canvas, which you all approved last year as a contract that is provided through the Online Education Initiative as well. And I'm happy to say that we are fully implemented in Canvas. The transition has ended. There weren't too many bumps and bruises. Folks are feeling pretty good about the new system. That's a snapshot of a course in Canvas right here. Beginning this fall, we will only be teaching online classes in Canvas, and the MPC Online system will be an archive for faculty to access their prior courses. And we'll be able to turn our attention to things beyond the transition. We'll be looking at more ways that we can grow and support our faculty and our students in online courses. The common ways that our faculty interact with students, and interaction between faculty and students is a really critical component of an online course, and it's one of the things that we make sure that we build into our online courses that sets it apart from what would typically have been called a correspondence course, which is not something that we're allowed to offer. If we have an online course, something that is involves separation with distance from our faculty and our students, we're required to show some sort of regular and substantive interaction between our faculty and students. And our team has indicated the number of ways that our faculty most commonly interact with our students and our students most commonly interact with one another. By and far, the most important are online discussions. Those are present in almost every online course you'll see at MPC. Other very obvious or traditional mechanisms, email, feedback and comments through the gradebook, course announcements. Our faculty, of course, meet with students in person when they can, on the phone, through chat room. Social media has taken a big rise in the last year, but still a fairly uncommon mode compared to the others above it. Student authentication is a big challenge for all colleges around the state, and this answers the question of how do we know that the students who are taking our online class are actually the students who are enrolled in the class? How do we know that someone hasn't enrolled in a class and asked their brother or sister or aunt or uncle or dog or cat to complete the assignments for them? MPC has made some pretty significant strides from the report I gave you 2 years ago when I said that we were working on all of these things, and these were goals for us to have in place. Thanks to the great work of the IT department here, we have a single sign-on common authentication system, meaning students log into our single sign-on system to access the Google system, the Gmail, their online courses, other really important campus systems. And research shows and IT best practices show that when you have one login that provides access to so many important pieces of a person's identity, they're much less likely to share that with others. We also have incorporated technology, including online exam monitoring tools. Faculty can enable this in their class to lock down a browser, ensuring that students don't go out and do other things online, look up answers online in the middle of a quiz. even to the point at which it can record their keystrokes, record their mouse movement, record their video while they are being in the exam environment. It's a secure online proctoring system. And I think our English faculty are pretty happy, or at least they're getting to know the new system that they've been asking for quite a while, writing style plagiarism detection software that when students submit their papers online will now flag instances that may be common from other submissions that may be misquoted or miscited to help them detect if students are plagiarizing, whether it be inadvertently or on purpose. And then we also continue to offer online proctoring for exams that is mostly arranged by faculty in the divisions and departments on their own, but we're having some conversations now about how we can institutionalize that and provide some proctoring services for our faculty. And the community college system in its entirety is developing a proctoring network so that our students will be able to go from college to college and work within the campus proctoring systems elsewhere to have exams proctored for our campus as well. So we're really trying to make some advances in that area. And then student services. This is one that we should give a big kudos to the student services folks, because when I was here 2 years ago, we were talking about the fact that we have good information about the student services available to our online students, but we may not always have the services available to someone who's remote. For example, a student who might be down in Southern California couldn't very easily meet with one of our counselors. I'm happy to say they've done a tremendous amount of work, and just about every service that we provide on campus is available at a distance as well. Our counselors have been trained for online counseling. They're using a new system called Cranium Cafe, which is an interactive video conferencing system to provide online counseling services to students who are not in our area. It allows us to reach folks beyond our area, which hopefully will be an increase in enrollment and a greater service to the students that we are enrolling in our online classes. Student retention strategies are something that we focused on as a distance ed support team and also in conjunction with student services. We've put together a lot of really rich online orientation materials for online students and support resources as well. Our faculty coordinator for distance education has worked with many faculty to look at the redesign of curriculum to make sure that students are much more engaged in the process, that they're actively doing things so that they don't start slipping behind or forgetting about that online class that they know that they signed up for but haven't logged in yet. Also proactively contacting students when certain parameters of participation haven't been reached. And we've been providing workshops on this. If you have a student who didn't log in week 1, we've got to contact them and find out why they didn't log in, because if they don't keep up, they're much more likely to drop the class or to essentially fail than those who participate more regularly. So those are some things that we've really been focusing on, and that makes use of the predictive analytics in the new Common Course Management System that allow us to track students much more carefully to make sure that they're keeping up with the class and identify those that might need a little extra nudge. Also, state authorization. I brought to you a report last time that let you know that we were initiating applications for approval in other states. What this means is that the U.S. Department of Education expects that if we offer distance education and we have a student who is residing in another state, that we have that state's permission to educate that student. It's not just where their address might be, but where they're actually taking our class. And it might not seem like a big deal when you look at the fact that we have 12 out-of-state students registered in the spring. That's not a huge number. We know we can increase that over time, but what we don't factor into that are the students who are in our military, our active military students, who come to MPC for a very short period of time, enroll in an online class, and get deployed somewhere else. So they might get deployed to Texas. They're not technically a Texas resident at that point, but they're taking our class from Texas. So technically, MPC has to have Texas's approval to maintain the authorization, and this would affect our ability to offer financial aid if we're found to have violated this. So we're one of actually very few colleges in the state who took the approach of actually reaching out and gaining the authorization. Many colleges, especially those in our region, including Gavilan and Cabrillo, to my knowledge, have essentially just taken the practice of blocking all out-of-state students. So if you're an out-of-state student, they can't be served by those colleges. We want it to be as inclusive as possible, so my office has actually worked with the State Department of Education in every state that you see in green, as well as a handful of other territories to gain authorization. Those states that are in red are the states that either charge too much money or that have policies or practices that wouldn't allow us to register students in those states. So right now, if you're a student in Minnesota trying to register at MPC, unfortunately we can't serve you, but we're happy to help you find some references or resources in Minnesota. But 41 states right now, we're in good shape and received approvals. I just thought I'd leave you with a couple of statements from some faculty members who are teaching online, and I'll just kind of summarize some of these. Steve Albert talks about capturing a whole different type of student in his online classes, and we see that echoed from many of the folks that I talk with, many of the faculty who are teaching online. It opens up opportunities to students who may not have been able to take their class otherwise. Dr. Ana Garcia talks about how she gets to interact with a larger variety of students. She teaches an interesting class, Geology 9, which is an Earth catastrophes class, but has struggled to make enrollment for many years. When she put it online, it has been bursting at the seams in enrollment, and she's gaining a lot of students from the CSUs and UCs in the class because she's made it accessible to them. Dr. Mullins from our history department has shared with me an interesting observation about how she sees a lot of folks coming to her class who are parents who work during the day and can't take a class in the day schedule and would have had to have arranged childcare at night, and so it's too much of a struggle. And so online courses are one of the things that she sees as a mechanism to provide them with access to our courses and to degrees and certificates. Molly Jensen has talked about the diversity of her students and talked about how teaching online has also made her a better face-to-face teacher. I want to applaud the efforts of all of our faculty and our distance ed support team to grow our online instruction at MPC. And thank you for listening. Do you have any questions?
Being that I originally come from Minnesota, I want to apologize.
I'm so sorry.
No, I want to apologize for them. This isn't something I'm asking for or advocating, but it is a question. When we register students from out of state, do they pay our in-state tuition still?
We have Nicole Dunn in the room, and I believe they pay out-of-state tuition. Is that correct, Nicole?
Yes, so I can come to the mic if you can't hear me. Yes.
Out-of-state and international students would pay the out-of-state or international student tuition.
Yes, so the fees are charged on the out-of-state tuition and for our international students is based on their residency with the college. Their ability to be able to take an online course depends on where they are residing. So there are two separate factors there. So, but yes, if you do have an address out of the state, you would be highly considered an out-of-state student also.
And there are exceptions and exemptions for military personnel.
Thank you.
I
Dr. Steck?
actually have a couple questions. So close to 800 FTES online now. We have 6,500, maybe 6,700 if we borrow correctly. That's way over 10% of our students are online students, as it turns out. And many of them are local, I understand.
Absolutely.
Do you have any sense of how that compares with other community colleges in the system? Are we in the middle? Are we better than most in terms of, or better meaning in terms of we have higher proportion than most or lower?
I don't have specific data to share, but I know we're doing well compared to other schools. Some schools, like Hartnell, for example, their enrollment situation is pretty healthy right now, so they have not invested much effort at all into growing their online courses because they haven't needed to. Other schools around the state have had such a major enrollment decline that they've invested considerable amounts. And there's a school, somewhere, it's not College of Desert, but it's somewhere around there that's about 45% online now. So we have community colleges that are growing significantly in their online enrollment. And I'll also just add that as a participant in the Online Education Exchange, we're still a pilot college. We're trying to work with the state to create the system to allow students to more easily take online classes from outside of our own areas here at MPC to complete their degrees. And you probably saw some communication from the governor in the past couple of months where he's actually written a letter requesting that our chancellor consider opening a new community college, specifically an online college. We're all trying to decide what that might mean and what that might look like, because really the goals that he's trying to achieve are what we're also trying to achieve with the Online Education Initiative, and that might be something that would draw from the work that we're doing in our individual campuses. But I would say that we're pacing really well compared to most schools in terms of growing online courses and attracting students from outside of our geographical area. When I did the report to you 2 years ago, I had some data, and I haven't been able to work with Rosaline on this in the past year, but we were
right around 75% of our online students live here in our own district. So 25% were from beyond. The students we're reaching beyond our district is a little bit greater now, but I don't have the specific numbers to share.
So,
Oh, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Mike.
Well, I wanted to piggyback just on, there's been a lot of discussion about what MPC is doing, with the change in repeatability, et cetera. So this is one of those things. The other very strong strategy that we have is we have increased the number of instructional service agreements as a stopgap measure. So as you know, a few years ago, I increased the amount that we have with South Bay Regional Training Consortium by several hundred. So we're now getting 655 FTS from the South Bay Regional Training Consortium. So actually, this amount of FTS that our faculty are engaged in teaching represents more than 10% of what our base would be if you took away all of those instructional service agreements. So it's really been a shot in the arm to the college.
So you mentioned the governor's letter to the chancellor. So you already explained it well, but I worry about that because I think the governor thinks that what we ought to do is create this new college which would eliminate the online courses from our own colleges, which will affect us negatively, and clearly somebody else much worse than us.
We have a governor who's very friendly for online instruction. He has actually made it a priority for a number of years now, and his priority led to the creation of the Online Education Initiative as well, by providing the initial funding and the direction to create a system. My perception is he probably would like to see things move a little more quickly. The OEI has moved rather slow for good reasons. We've been very cautious and careful as a system not to roll something out too quickly that's going to harm students. We've done it in a way utilizing the resources at local colleges, which is one of the reasons why this report is so important to the Chancellor's office, to see how we're operating from college to college, to be able to make comparisons. And it's this report that leads them to make decisions about what we're doing and how they can provide us with some additional support and funding for online instruction.
I have one more question, which is off the wall, and I apologize for this. There is something called SARA, the State Authorization Reciprocity Agreement that 48 states have signed on to, or 47, or something like that, and California's... And
that relates to state authorization. The reason we need to even do this is because our state has not yet been able to participate in the reciprocity agreement. In order to participate in SARA, California will need an active legislation to adopt that. And we have been told through the Chancellor's office for a while now that that is not something that we would be expecting to see happen anytime soon because of other priorities. But we do continue to hope that that happens. That will essentially eliminate this effort from our individual campuses. But right now, the Chancellor's office guidelines are, if you serve out-of-state students, to make sure that you have the appropriate approvals.
So this gets around the limitation of the state of California not signing
Yes.
on. Okay, thank you.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We have a question from the audience. Yes.
I was glad to hear that
Could you identify yourself, please?
I'm Melissa Newland. I'm a alum, long-time education person in terms of taking classes, all sorts of them, including Gen Train, but yay. I noted that you had spoken about your student retention strategies, and I was pleased to hear that. I wondered if you could speak to how well that's doing, people who sign up, are they able to complete the course, or is that compared to other places? And also about the effect on current registration for classes in terms of, are they taking this in addition to taking one on site? Do they mostly do that? Some of them, it's their only contact with MPC, especially looking at ongoing or having a statewide thing that isn't really plugged into us.
Thank you. I can try and address a couple of those points. In terms of the effect of the retention strategies, we unfortunately aren't able to gauge that just yet because most of these are strategies that we've begun to utilize within the past year. So we're hoping to see if we might move the needle. It also will probably take us a little bit more than a year to see if there's truly some change on a long-term basis, but we're hoping to see a change from last year pre-intervention to what we see this year. In terms of the mix of the number of students taking courses, that's a really good question because we as a college have a very small number of courses that are actually only offered online. And so, for example, our Library 50 course meets a technology literacy requirement that anyone who's graduating with a local associate's degree would have to complete. And so that means every MPC student who takes, who completes a local associate degree will have taken at least that one online class. We have a fairly good mix in terms of the number of traditional MPC students who would take most of their classes face-to-face and also an online class or two, as well as a smaller number of students who are taking fully online loads. I don't have specific numbers there, but it is definitely a mix. So we're supporting a large variety of students. And I'll also point out the fact that our course management system is also used very heavily by faculty who teach face-to-face classes to support their courses, provide online materials, exams, study guides, things of that nature. And so there's a large blend of use of the online resources, but it's serving a very wide variety of students. I don't have the numbers in front of me though.
Thank you, Dr. Cannoli. Are there any other? Yes.
It's not a question for the presentation, but I was wondering if I could be excused.
Yes.
Just as
we were going to, as soon as this was over, we were going to take a 5-minute break. And thank you for being here today, and we welcome you back at our next meeting.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions with regard for Dr. Lauren?
Lauren Walsh, prior CSEA chapter president. I just have a question. Do faculty negotiate, and I don't know how you handle it, but since I'm a union person, I'm curious, do faculty have to teach online, or is it an agreement separate than their agreement with the district? How do they get compensated? For example, you said they're required to follow up with students. I have a friend that used to teach at Heald College, and he explained that you had to really massage your students. As you said, they don't normally to follow up and keep them going. And he had to call, they gave him a cell phone where he had to actually call his students that didn't come to class every day. And he was compensated for that. And I'm just curious, how do, I suppose I could ask a local faculty person, but I'm just curious, how do you negotiate that, and how are they being compensated for that extra step that you're saying they might have to engage in keeping the student on the line, if you so to say?
This is a great question for our faculty to answer. The workload is different. It's not necessarily more, it's not necessarily less. It is a significant amount of work, and it's going to vary on each faculty member's instructional style and how they've designed their course. Faculty are not required to teach online courses. Faculty are able to teach online sections just like they could be scheduled for face-to-face sections. In some programs, the students demand online courses. We see that in the enrollment patterns. And so the faculty are working closely with their deans, with their division chairs, and their department chairs to determine the appropriate mix of scheduled online and face-to-face classes, as well as classes at Marina, to make sure we're meeting the students' demands. But what we do is we try and offset some of that by providing additional support to the faculty through the distance ed support team and additional tools and resources to them as well.
Thank you all. We're going to take a short 5-minute recess at the moment.